kind of have a long list of questions. All right. The first one is, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how it was, I mean, if you remember, about how it was like growing up and stuff, about your neighborhood and your parents, and I guess your relationship with your parents. So maybe if, like your childhood and stuff, if you remember.
Well, my dad was in the florist business, and so that's what I grew up in. We lived behind the floor shop. And later on, he went into the greenhouse business. Then he went back into the florist business, and it just didn't take at that time.
Did your mom work with him as well? Your mom?
Yeah.
And at that time you were living, was it in Chicago or the suburbs? Was it?
No, we were living in Chicago.
It was in Chicago. In the north side of Chicago?
Chase and Western.
Oh.
It's 1 block north of Toohey. Chase.
And how was that neighborhood considered at the time? Was it like a pretty safe type of neighborhood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me maybe if you remember, how was your relationship with your parents?
Good.
Were you very close with them at all?
Yeah.
Was it more so with one parent than the other?
That's hard to say, because my father's out working, and if the chances were that I could go to work with him, especially when he had the greenhouse and was doing landscape work, and I could go to work with him.
So you went to work with your dad?
Yeah. Or when he went out on deliveries, I would go with him.
Did you like that type of work? Did you like going along?
Yeah, I'm just a kid though, so.
How old were you when you moved into the Lincolnwood house? Do you remember?
16, I think.
Oh, so you only lived there about a year before you went to school then? Is that?
Yeah. Well, maybe 15. It's been 2 years, yeah. Because I went to work with my dad at the steel mill on 89th Street during the summer. And my brother, he worked at the Renmore Country Club, caddy.
Okay. Was it always a priority for you to attend college? And how did you feel about being at the University of Chicago?
Well, that was my own move. A friend of mine passed the test, pretty close friend, and we were in the same class together, and I figured, well, what the heck, I'd save that much tuition by passing the test too. So I took the test at the University of Chicago, and later on they informed me that I passed. And I was at St. Bede's at the time, boarding school, and the folks called me up and told me, and I came in.
Did you like being at the University of Chicago? I mean, was it a nice school at the time?
Oh, yeah.
And then you stayed at the dorms, right?
Yeah. It was cheaper to do that than to travel back to Lincolnwood every day.
When you were attending school, what goals did you have for after school? When you would complete college, is there a particular career at the time that you had been thinking of?
It had been electronics.
Electronics.
Of course, by the time you finish school, you'd probably switch your interests.
Were you more of a shy person, an introverted, or were you more the outgoing type back then?
Probably introvert.
Okay, now the questions get a little bit harder. If possible, I mean, if it's not too hard for you to answer, can you tell me a little bit about the burglaries, I guess, that you had committed at that time? Was there any specific reasons for the burglaries that you remember? I mean, was it just something for fun, or did you feel, I mean, in some way compelled or something?
No, it was for money.
For money? And then the stuff that you took, like, did you take money that from the places, or there was also items that you had also taken? Did you manage to sell, I guess, those items? No. Where did you store the stuff that you would take? Was there anything?
Didn't take that much.
Well, would you keep it in your dorm room?
Well, books, yeah.
Your roommates, I mean, you had a roommate, is that, he didn't know about the burglaries? I mean, you didn't tell anybody?
I didn't have a roommate in the beginning. I roomed alone in Snell Hall, and then we moved to Woodlawn Hall. And my friend that lived next door to me in Snell Hall, we figured to save some money, and we went into one room. So I had a roommate then.
Do you remember about how many burglaries that you committed? Was it like a lot or just a few?
Depends on how you classify a burglary. Anytime you go into any place to steal something, it's a burglary, whether you take something or not.
Right. So, would you typically, though, you would typically take something when you would?
No.
No, you would just.
Yeah, but it's still a burglary.
Right. If you didn't take something, was there a particular reason why you would?
There's no money to take.
Oh, they just didn't have anything.
Yeah.
They just didn't have anything. How often would you go and do this? Burglaries?
Usually when I was short of cash.
So maybe once a month or less?
Say once a week.
Oh, once. And you wouldn't break into anywhere near the University of Chicago, is that right? You would go more north, is that right? Or
No,
No,
not
you-
necessarily.
it would be anywhere? Is that-
Yeah.
Was it mostly apartments or houses as well?
Apartments. No houses.
How could you be sure that no one was home? I mean, how did you feel safe enough to, to go in?
Well, you ring the bell long enough,
And then
and you look for lights being on. That's the way you would tell.
Yeah. How would you manage to get in to the actual apartment itself, not the building, but the actual apartment? Did you have some mechanism to break in to the door?
No, there were two kinds of burglaries, though. One was a daylight burglary where during the summertime, people leave their doors open in the apartment buildings for ventilation. And then you would just go into the door that's open if there's nobody in the room.
Did you ever use the fire escape?
Not very often. No, because you're exposed too much.
Did you, during any of these burglaries, did you ever carry any weapons?
Yeah,
What,
usually a small caliber revolver.
and how did you get that? Was that during one of the,
Burglary.
was it the only gun that you had ever stolen from a burglary, or did you have more?
You know, my brother and I had our .22 rifles.
And those you had gotten from,
Bought them.
oh, you bought those?
After we shoot pheasants out the window in the living room,
Yeah.
Lincoln Wood.
Did you ever carry a knife as well, or just the gun?
Usually, no. Usually, if I carried a knife, it was for one purpose, that was to pry and open windows, or whatever I had to pry open. If it was convenient, I'd carry a crowbar.
What kind of knife? Just like a switchblade? Is that, or like a big knife?
Yeah, one that's strong enough to pry open something with that won't break off.
When you said that you stole when you took items, other than money, was there anything in particular that you would like to take more than anything else? Is there ever anything that had caught your interest and you like to gather that up the most?
clothes, men's clothes, and curios. I mean, I would take a metronome.
Would you bring with you a bag, or to put everything in, or did you just take it from the apartments?
Took it from the apartment.
And I was hoping also to ask you about, I'm sure you know about Lucy Freeman's book that was published a long time ago. She portrays you in that book, that's probably the first book that had come out about you. She portrays you as having a split personality with an alter ego known as George Merman. Can you tell me how she came up with that conclusion and the idea of an alter ego?
From what the newspapers had written at the time, because when they gave the sodium pentothal, they brought that up from that. And Lucy Freeman had just gotten out of being analyzed herself by a psychiatrist.
Oh, did she?
So she kind of figured she had some expertise in that area. I guess everybody who takes a course in psychology starts analyzing everybody in their family.
Yeah, that's true. So she never had the chance to interview you or anyone else in the case. Everything that she had written in the book was just from the newspapers and just.
No, she had interviewed me.
Oh, she had interviewed you.
At Stateville, yeah, a couple times.
But she never. She kind of twisted things around in her book.
Well, she would say he must have thought this when he did this. And she'd put her own spin on stuff.
Looking back at it now, would you ever have agreed to the interview with her had you known the type of book that she wrote, that it would be so much against you?
No, I thought that I'd get something out of it. At least nobody's investigated in the case before.
Before her?
Yeah, the attorney didn't investigate anything at all, and I figured that at least somebody that knew, that was looking into things, would come up with something that I could use.
But she basically just wanted to write some fantasy story, like a thriller.
She wanted to make money.
What year do you remember that she interviewed you? I don't know if you remember.
No.
Was that early 60s?
No, it was about 52.
52? And that's at Stateville? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That was after the post-conviction.
Did you ever, were you ever able to read the book? Or just...
Yeah, I read it.
You did? How did you feel after you read the book?
Disappointed, but I did get something out of the book. She had, so in the Brown murder, the gun that was used in a shooting before that, at which time the police recovered the gun. So when the Brown murder occurred, it was in police custody, and that came out in her book. And she didn't pick up on it or nothing.
After you had the chance to read the book, did you ever speak with her again about
No.
anything? No, that was it.
No. I didn't even get a chance to read the book until I was down at Vienna.
And when would that be?
75. The warden wouldn't let me get it at Stateville.
Do you have a copy in your possession today or no?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, you do?
because I use this reference once in a while.
Does it ever, when you think about the book today, does it ever make you feel very angry, or you just feel indifferent about
Well,
it?
she didn't do it, somebody else would do it.
But do you think that makes it right that, I don't know, or you just,
There's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
And you either talk to them about an interview, or they go away and
Make up stories?
make up what they want.
At the age of 17, during your last burglary, you, I guess, were assaulted by somebody in the stairwell or something. They were trying to stop you, I guess, during a burglary that hit you with the flower pots. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine, when you were taken in, for this burglary, did you ever imagine that they would start to ask you questions about 3 unsolved murders?
No.
No? When the police started to ask you questions about these murders, what was your response to them at the beginning?
I didn't answer their questions at all.
Oh, you didn't answer. Were they upset with that you didn't want to answer their questions?
Oh, yeah. I didn't have to answer the questions.
But they kept you there, though, didn't they? Keep
Yeah.
you? Did you ask for an attorney to come in at all?
No.
No. Did they advise you of any rights or anything?
No, that was before Miranda came in.
Oh. How many officers had questioned you, or was it just one
We had shifts,
in shifts?
at least 2 on a shift. 24 hours a day.
So you never answered anything, or did you say something, or you just
No, just
nothing?
didn't answer.
But they must have been pretty upset with that. But they kept on asking you
Yeah.
different things. Did you even say that no, I'm not going to answer? You just didn't say anything.
No, didn't say anything.
From what I had read about the police questioning, they had given you a spinal tap. Is that?
Yeah.
I guess at the hospital, they must have done that. And sodium pentothal and a lie detector test.
The lie detector test was done at the detective bureau, not at the,
Not at the police station.
no, not at Bridewell. I wasn't in the police station.
Oh, okay. When did they tell you that they were going to take you to the hospital to give you a spinal tap to check for brain injuries or whatever they said to you? Did they tell you where they were taking you?
No,
They never said anything. When you saw what they were going to be doing, did you say anything to them that you weren't giving them permission to do that, or?
No, I didn't get no permission. I screamed a lot when the needle was going in. That was it.
When they gave you the sodium pentothal, did you say anything after they'd given you that?
No. Grinker says, we'll be putting you to sleep. That's all he says. And I said, you don't have to put me to sleep, just leave me alone and I'll go to sleep.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop him.
Did they say that you confessed? Is that what they said? That you confessed? No, they didn't say that?
No. In fact, Grinker testified that there was no confession under the drug.
At the time, what did the police tell you that they had as evidence that you were the one that committed these 3 murders? What did they tell you that they had? What kind of proof?
They said that they had Laffy's fingerprint comparison.
Did a fingerprint comparison?
Yeah. And the state's attorney told me, he says, your handwriting looks like the same that was on the ransom note. But he was no expert. In fact, there was no expert opinion at the time.
They didn't have an expert? They didn't have an expert at the time?
No, but there were experts out there that were examining it on their own for the newspapers. And they were coming up with, no, there's no comparison.
They said for the papers, no comparison? What about the, I guess the fingerprints? They said that they had a rolled fingerprint in one of the murder scenes. They said that to you, that they had a fingerprint?
Yeah.
And what did you use?
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
You're talking about the Brown case.
Yeah.
All right. They didn't come up with that
Until later.
Much later. But they accused me of that ahead of time.
So basically, they just said that you did these crimes, but they didn't really come up with any evidence. They just said that your handwriting looks similar.
They hired their own expert for the handwriting. See, the FBI was consulted first for the handwriting.
FBI was asked?
Yeah, they took the handwriting samples down to Washington, D.C.
And what did they come up with?
I found out later that they came up that there was no comparison. Then I got from the fellow that did the analysis for the FBI. He's working for the FBI, and then he retired. And he told somebody else down in North Carolina, where he was retired to, that there wasn't any comparison. And that party informed me. But we haven't, if I found out, it wouldn't do me no good anyhow. It's a late date. But, so I found that out, like I say, much later on. And then we had our own experts check it out. And they found out that there was no comparison on handwriting.
Well, the experts that you had, but that was after you had been incarcerated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, after. Why? I mean, you were arrested for a burglary. How did the police come up with the idea that they would? How did they decide that you would be the one that they would pin the murders on? I mean, they must have been at the time arresting other people, for various crimes. Do you think they decided because you were a burglar that you must have been the one?
No,
How do you think?
because it was in the neighborhood.
The same neighborhood as the burglaries and the crimes?
Yeah.
And you were eventually given counsel, who in turn made a deal with the prosecuting attorney to give you life in prison instead of the death penalty. When you were told of this deal, how did you feel about that?
The prosecution came to me first and
They came
offered
to
me
you
the
first?
deal while I was in the police custody, and I refused it. Then after I had counsel, they went and they got to talking with counsel and called them in on it and proposed the plea bargain settlement. Same thing they had proposed to me. And when counsel brought the proposition to me, I said no.
If the prosecuting attorney was so sure that that you were guilty, why would they make a deal to give you life instead of death penalty? If he was so sure that he had,
He wasn't sure.
He wasn't sure.
He admitted that.
But your
They didn't have any evidence.
right. But your attorney, though.
The clamor going out in the newspapers.
So the papers at the time were just printing things saying that you were definitely the one.
Oh, yeah.
So how did your attorney, did he even need your permission to make this deal?
Yeah.
You did, but so then you would.
Yeah,
you
because the
agreed.
deal was for a confession and
So
a plea of guilty.
So you
So he
agreed.
couldn't do it on his own. If anyone was going to confess, it would have been me.
So
not
you
him.
so you then agreed. Why did you agree to life?
Because in the middle of July, the Chicago Tribune published a confession story saying that I had confessed and this was a confession story. And there wasn't any confession story. They made it up. Later on, they admitted that they did. But that didn't help me none. Because they had everybody was convinced that I had confessed. I couldn't have gotten a fair trial then and done anyway. So they had me over the barrel, either take the plea bargain or go to trial.
Did you agree and then think that, I'll agree to this, to life in prison, and that eventually the truth will come out, that you're innocent and that you'll be set free? Did you think that?
At least I wouldn't be buried and the truth comes out.
Yeah. So you did think that the truth would come out and you
Yeah,
wouldn't
in
be?
time. See, later on they would realize that they had made a mistake after I'm dead. That's how, like doctors, they bury their mistakes too.
Yeah. How supportive was your family at the time of your arrest and incarceration? And did you have any friends that were supportive?
Oh, yeah.
Friends were supportive? And what about your parents and your brother?
What about 'em?
Oh, were they supportive? Did they, visit you? Did they believe in your
Yeah,
innocence?
my brother kept in the low
Your brother?
profile, yeah. Otherwise, they would have harangued him too. But wherever my parents went, there were cars full of reporters following them all the time.
Reporters. Eventually, after I guess the story kind of died down, and they had new stories to follow. Did your parents then visit you on a regular basis, or not?
No, they got divorced.
Was this because of you being in jail, or that
Well,
the stress maybe?
Probably that capped it off.
And then your dad moved. Did he move with your brother?
No, my mother and my brother,
Oh, your mother and brother moved.
they went out to the West Coast. And my dad stayed on the job at the steel mill.
Did they write you letters and stuff? Did your parents write you letters?
Oh, yeah.
Both
Yeah.
did. Do you have any living family now that talks to you, or no?
Well, nieces and nephews
Nieces and nephews, but your mom had passed away.
passed away. Father passed away, brother passed away.
Was there ever a time when you felt, completely hopeless, that, no one will believe you, about the truth, and the truth will never come out about your innocence? Did you ever feel that it's